Hello everyone, it's Geesje. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I invite you to come along as I make some monoprints using the gel plate, and I'll tell you all I know about the gel printing process and the supplies that I use. Let's get started. First, let's talk about the gel plate. I have a 8 by 10 over here. It comes in a big clamshell case, and because I've already taken this out of it, I will show you how it comes. It has a little booklet with it that shows you a little bit on how to do it, and it has a plastic protective sheet on both sides that you peel off, and then you can use it. When you want to store it, it is advised not to use the plastic again because it doesn't always line up and you might have air bubbles under it, and if you have an air bubble under it, it might create pressure which leaves a dent in your gel plate. So it is advised to use paper. So I cut my pieces a 1/4 inch bigger than my gel plate, and I just used the non-marked surface to adhere that to my gel plate, and it stays nicely together. And then you're going to put it back in the clamshell where it came in. This way it is protective against scratches and dents and marring. And for the smaller one, I can just keep it on a flat surface. I have a table that I can put it on. Some people actually hang it up. They say it's okay, but I don't feel like I want to hang the bigger plates. They say it's not going to dent and sag, but I just don't like it. I have a bigger one. It is 12 by 14, and it has a shallow area in it. So I bought a cheap picture frame with glass in it from the thrift store. That's where I keep my gel plate stored on. The next thing I'm going to talk about is paints. I have here a variety of paints, cheap ones from the dollar store and Michael's. These paints are quite thin, but they work great if you have them. Then we have Folk Art and Americana. These paints are a little thicker than the cheaper kinds. Also, they have the pigment is a little stronger in the Americana and Folk Art than in the acrylic and Craftsmart. Then we have the medium artist paints. This is PBO Studio Acrylics. I have here Artist Loft, and I have Liquitech Acrylics. And then we have the high pigmented paints from Golden. And there's also a difference between the white and the black. This one has open on it, and it says slow drying acrylic. So if you want to do more intricate things, then you can use that. Now, the interesting thing about these paints is that you can see how opaque or translucent they are. On the yellow one, you can see the stripes through the paint, which means that it's quite translucent. On the red one, you can see the stripes a little bit less, so that means they're a little bit more opaque. And with the green paint here, you can hardly see the black stripes, which means this is a quite opaque paint. Then on the PBO acrylics, it actually says if it's transparent and opaque. And I'll tell you something about the transparency. If your first layer is an opaque paint and the second layer is a transparent paint, you're going to see the opaque paint through the transparent paint on your plate and on your paper. So I would then always do the transparent paint as the first layer and put a opaque layer on top of it. On the Artist Loft, it has little squares on the back. So on the yellow, you can see that the square here is half filled. It says semi-opaque, so it is somewhat translucent. On the blue one, the square is completely filled in, which means it's an opaque paint. Then with the Liquitech acrylics, it's the same thing. If the square is filled, it's opaque, and if it is not filled in, it's semi-opaque. It's not translucent, but it's semi-opaque. So the mid-grade paints that you see here, the Liquitech, PBO, and Artist Loft, have more pigment in them than the Americana and the Folk Art. They're also thicker to work with. The golden paints, again, have more pigment in them than the mid-grade paints, and again, are quite thick. Of course, you can work with ink pads. I've tried it a bit, and for what I'm using it, I really like my acrylic paints, so I hardly use this. And you can use alcohol inks, and for me, they're not applicable, but I just want to mention them anyway. Next thing we need is a brayer to roll out the paint on when it's on your plate. It doesn't really matter how wide it is. Just pick one up and see how it works, and yeah, play. So we talked about all the things we need for gel printing. Now we need something to make marks with. So the easiest thing is a stencil. Then you can use masks to mask off an area. Also, a great way of masking off an area is adding leaves to your gel prints. Then there's texture plates, either homemade or from found objects. This was a bottom of a cake, so I have two sides that I can use. Then of course there's found objects. netting from an onion bag of some sorts. I don't know what this is for, but I found it and it probably will make a nice pattern. Piece of lace, very interesting. A normal grocery bag, just make marks like so. You can make your own texture plate by using a shelf liner and adding it to cardboard. I found this in the store at the paint section. It will make nice curves. Another shelf liner glued to cardboard. Bubble wrap. Pieces of foam from the bottom of a meat tray. Another shelf liner. How about a regular pencil? And then we use the eraser side. I found these two sponges in the kitchen area. And what about using a fork to make some nice marks? Very easy. Also, you want to look at the bottoms of containers. They have sometimes nice patterns on it. Very useful for mark making. Like so. And of course, we need some paper to print on. You want to choose your papers depending on the project you want to make. So for instance, if you want to do some collaging, the best paper to use is thinner paper, like copy paper I have here. Deli paper, it's nice and thin. This is rice paper, also nice and thin, or even just regular tracing paper. If you want to make a book of some sorts, like how I made this book, you want to use a little bit sturdy paper, like cardstock or mixed media paper, or even construction paper. Here I have some packaging paper. You can still see your design if you use opaque paints. Here I have some music paper, dictionary pages, pieces of a map. Using transparent paints, the writing and the maps will show through your paints, which can make a very nice effect. And you can also print on wood or on other flat surfaces. Now you might ask, well, what do you do with all these papers? Well, you can do various things. You could make it a journal cover. You could make a little book with all the papers you made, like I've shown in a previous video on how to do it. And after that, I went in with a marker to change it up a little bit. The paper you end up with doesn't need to stay that way. You can always add marks or even images or cutouts from magazines to it, just to make it a little bit more interesting. This is by no means a finished journal. I'm still working on it. The other thing I did was I made myself a agenda a couple of years ago. This is from 21, I think. So one page has a gel print and the other was a printout that I bound together like I shown earlier in a video. And sometimes I just left it and sometimes I added things to it. Simple collage. I think this was it for today, and I hope you liked the video and that you stay tuned for more to come. See you in the next one. Bye.